Welcome to the Integration Station. I'm your host, Michael, a child and adolescent occupational therapist, and with me today is my co-host,
Eleanor. I'm also a child and adolescent occupational therapist.
And joining us today is another child and adolescent occupational therapist, Siena.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Siena is a special guest today. She's one of our extraordinary OTs here and been with us for about 5 years, although it was half of 2023 when you were off travelling the world and doing a whole range of wonderful things.
Yep. And
I'm sure part of that experience also helped you realise some things that we're going to talk about today to some extent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So before we get into our conversation today, just wanted to say thank you to Siena for taking up this opportunity and being so open to have a chat to us about some changes that have happened in her life and wanting to share that with the rest of our listeners. And to us as well, very privileged to be here today. At Plus, you might see a different space, no desks and windows in the background today. This is our workplace for those that haven't seen it before. So, and a place that you love, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
But before we get into our conversations, there are a couple of regular segments that we do, Siena.
The first one, Siena, we'd love to get your insights on activity of the week, something that you've been loving doing in your sessions that you can share with listeners to give some inspiration.
Therapy, activity of the week.
I'll put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
That's okay. Therapy activity of the week. Something you've done this week that you're like, yeah, that was really, really cool.
Something that I've actually had never done before. I've done things similar, but I'd never, built the equipment in this way. I had the wedge, the big O-jump wedge, angled at a pretty high angle, hoisted up with one of the blocks, and the kid that I was working with was jumping on the trampoline but then also like running up, so a lot of that heavy work, and then he also really enjoyed a slide down too. We did get the tunnel as well for him to roll into, but I think I've never seen the O-jump up that high, and I even found it tricky to climb up, but it was such good heavy work, and it really, really helped this kid that needs a lot of movement and a lot of that input to feel good and open up. So wow. I loved doing that.
Yeah. Cool, great activity. I don't know if that's in my wheelhouse, yours?
I like doing tunnel rolls as well in my sessions because I just think it provides that great, it's like the vestibular input too with the movement in addition to the deep pressure, and I think can have this really awesome effect, super regulating for lots of our friends. And then exactly like you said, getting us in that just right zone ready to go for the session ahead, which is cool.
Yeah, and it's a good one because it's not just the roll that provides that regulation and that heavy work input, but also getting them to push the tunnel up. And with the extreme version that we did, it was like I genuinely needed the help. So it was so good that this kid could get involved, one, to actually make it work, but two, for his own regulation opportunity.
And following the work health and safety practices we have here, it is a two-person lift to move the O-jump wedge as well, so I'm glad that was in place. Yeah,
yes,
fantastic.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you. Well, our next section is regulation strategy of the week.
Regulation strategy of the week.
Reg strategy. I have to think of
one? We call it reg strat.
Reg strat. Yeah. Reg strat of the week.
And it's just, sorry to interrupt, this could be not something you've necessarily done with clients. It could be something you've done yourself or something you've seen someone else talk about, or any regulation strategy that...
Well, I think for this week, because it's... I think it's very fitting for this week, and it has been helping me a lot as well, is water, anything water-based. If we can, for the younger ones, do some like bath time play, but obviously with a bit cooler water.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about drinking water because it's been so hot. Sorry, being in water.
Being in water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Important. Remain hydrated as well, obviously important.
Yeah. Yes.
We're talking about the sensory elements here.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, sorry,
being in water, whether it's like bath time play, running around in the sprinklers, just having buckets, having a hose, being able to go to the beach when the UVs aren't high, and or being able to be in the pools. I think for me, the best thing is just getting to the beach, and then what I really, really notice is when I first like break that water and there's like no noise and it's just the water, and just being in that kind of like, not really silence, but just, I guess, muffled sound. Oh my God, it just alleviates all like tension for me. So that's mine that I use and that I highly recommend.
That's such a beautiful image. I love that, and I can almost sort of picture myself there in what you've described, and then how grounding that might be, just kind of bringing yourself back to that moment and in your body and that at that point in time.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Can you maybe encourage my son to work on getting his head underwater? Because he's just really
I'll take him to the
avoiding it.
beach.
Yeah.
I'll get him on a surfboard in a year.
Oh. Well, we've got Neurodiversity Week coming up in 17th to 23rd of March, and we thought we would kick it off by interviewing you and wanted you to share, well, you wanted to actually. We thought a great opportunity for you to share your experiences about recently being diagnosed with ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I guess from my perspective, and Elle and I were talking before, that we wanted to hear a bit more about it from the workplace and the work perspective, and how that exploration diagnosis and understanding a bit more about yourself has been impacted by work and just the workplace itself. But I always start for any OT, in other interviews I've done with OTs, is how did you get into OT in the first place? Like, what made you get into OT?
So I always loved working with children with additional needs. My school had awesome opportunities where we had like a buddy system with St. Pat's when we were in primary school, and then in high school again we had to do like community service, and I got hosted at Adelaide East Education Centre, and I loved it there. And I'd come back to like, oh, okay, working with children or maybe something else. And for a while I wanted to do something different, and then I just thought, no, that's not me. And then I had that community service, and I thought, okay, I need to figure out a job that I can work with children or people with additional needs, but maybe not just like in a school setting, because I didn't want to be a teacher. And I actually saw a video on social media of Michael for OTFC, and it was just like a bit about Michael and what he does. And I know Michael because he's best friends with my cousin, and so it just popped up, and I thought, oh, Michael Krishy. And then I watched it, and I just had no idea what it was. I was about 15, and after watching that video, I just said, all right, whatever Michael's doing, that's what I want to do. And so figured out what it was, OT, got into it, and then it's kind of a full circle that I'm working here too.
I didn't set that question up, by the way. That's not like, yeah. But you have...
I was just saying that he's always looking for a casual plug, you know? Yeah. That's such a beautiful story, Siena. Yeah. And I resonate very much with that understanding of, well, this is kind of the list of things that I want to do within my work, but I'm not sure what that job is. And I always find it really interesting hearing how people came to occupational therapy as a profession. Yeah.
Do you know what's also crazy? Sorry. When in year 10 where you have to do the like building your career like subject at school, we had to do a questionnaire, and back then I wanted to be a journalist, so I was really set on that. And we had to do a questionnaire, and it was quite a rigorous one, and it gave us the results of what they would recommend our jobs were. And I just kind of like glossed through my results and saw, okay, journalism's like number 9 or something, cool. And I found my results years later, and number 1 was OT, and I didn't even recognise it then. Just so random.
It's interesting how those things can shape you at such a young age. But
I know.
So as we said at the top of the episode, it is Neurodiversity Month, and we were going to go down the path of understanding how our brains are different. So for you, Siena, the ADHD diagnosis, how did that come about, and how has that process been for you? Maybe you could just give us a bit more of an insight on that.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that being an OT and learning a lot about a range of diagnoses and challenges and different profiles of people, it has helped me have a greater understanding of my own needs and my own challenges, and I guess now, but back then, potential diagnoses. I think especially working at OTFC has helped me really confirm that, and has been a really big drive for me undergoing the diagnostic process. So I guess when you work with a big range of people, and OTs, but also like the families, you hear a lot about the challenges of my clients and what they're going through, whether it's to do with school, whether it's to do with like just daily living tasks, social stuff, emotional regulation. You know, internally we'll, a lot of the times could be like, oh yeah, I relate to that. Like, oh yeah, I understand that. Yep, agreed. And also, I guess working in a place that affords so much movement and so much freedom to explore an environment and your own body. I think what a lot of my kids were doing, I really wanted to do as well. And it's great working under like a sensory integration framework, because the importance of building an alliance with your client means that you can get involved. And so it was therapeutically beneficial, but it was funny that after the session I also thought, okay, that felt really good for me too. And it's like I was not, you know, I wasn't intending to, but it was kind of like I was going through my own like regulation opportunity, just like my kids as well. And so we do a lot of like talking and teaching and explaining and educating for the families of, oh, like we can try this and this and this, or we did this in the session and this seemed like that heavy work or that spinning or those big movements, you could just visibly see how much it just helped that client calm down and be able to engage in trickier things, communicate or express how they're feeling. And so I was explaining these things, but also then, yes, noticing them in myself. And I think I've always been a very active person. And I'm kind of, I think like a lot of kids love to run around and love to play and love to do handstands and love to go like swimming or whatever, but like it never left me. I think sometimes I see my friends or other adults, they don't do as much movement and playtime as they did when they were kids, and they seem to be okay with that. But for me, it just like never left. I've just always needed to continue. And, you know, I used to think like, okay, am I just being a bit of a show off, or am I being silly, or am I being childish because I just want to do handstands and cartwheels and whatever? But it wasn't that. It was like a really strong urge that I needed to. And so seeing that with clients that have the diagnosis of ADHD, it made me think, okay, I'm seeing, there's a common denominator here and I'm seeing similarities. Yeah.
Siena, I've got a question for you, and just to make a comment beforehand, like you're such a beautiful and intuitive clinician, and I always love watching you with your clients, and I feel like you just have this capacity to connect and bring such warmth, and I am actually loving hearing about how that connection deepens even further with how you move and engage and are always so present, and just hearing, I guess, that underlying piece that actually it's supporting your regulation so that you can be in that space to really do what you need to in the sessions and manage your own levels of alertness and things like that and regulate. And then I'll be interested to hear a little bit further along about how that then supports you in, you know, managing all the requirements that come as being an OT, right? Because it's not just about the sessions, it's the admin tasks, the to-do lists, and like all those other things.
Yeah.
But we'll circle back to that in a second. I'd love to hear from you. You know, I can really hear that in connecting with your clients and seeing part of their journeys, that you've really related to a lot of that and perhaps started to piece some things together yourself. And I actually know for lots of families, the parents that come through that maybe see their young people go through various needs or functional challenges, that kind of thing, that they're like, oh, perhaps there's something in, you know, my own history that might be quite similar. Did you have some moments that were really like these light bulb moments for you, or do you feel like it's something that you've always had perhaps some queries or curiosity around that's been pieced together over time? Like, have there been those moments where you're like, oh gosh, perhaps, you know, my brain is wired a little bit different than that, is something I want to more actively pursue, or has it been a longer term journey?
That's a good question. I think there weren't specific times where the penny dropped, but I think it has just been a build-up of confirmation. I think there has been times with working with the littlies, like, okay, I've spoken a lot about how much the movement and the regulation has helped confirm that, but there's also like the challenges that I hear from families and that I experience younger and still experience that also confirmed that. So I guess when I've had families speak more specifically about the challenges of executive functioning, which is a lot to do with like your organisation, your planning, your sequencing of activities, your working memory, regulating your emotions, all these things, that the sort of like the foundational functional skills that help to just be able to do the daily living activities. When I hear families speak more specifically about that, they might talk about how their child will be really forgetful with organising their stuff for school, or there might be a big task that they're wanting to do but they can't break down the steps to get there. And even like in general, just like regulating after school or after their day where it's been such a big day. Yeah, a little while ago, there were times as an OT where I thought, well, oh my gosh, I struggle with that stuff. How am I going to teach someone to do that too? And I think for a while as well, the strategies that I was trying to provide were things that I've known to help, like I've heard can be recommendations, but I know don't work for myself. But I'm like, oh, well, you know, this OT or this website says you should try doing this, so let's do this, where I was giving those recommendations and thought, okay, well, they don't actually help with me, and I can see it's not helping for them as well. And like, yeah, again, I'm kind of understanding that if they have that diagnosis and they're experiencing those challenges, that it confirms more for me as well.
Yeah, again, I guess that's the other example that what I'm hearing is that you'll, without knowing, your lived experience of things that have happened has helped you inform others and teach them the way that might work for them, but also realising that each individual is so different. Yeah. And so you have to really be quite tailored in what you do suggest.
Yeah.
But what I love about you, and Eleanor's mentioned it, is how generous you are with your time with your families, and you really do listen and sit with them, and you are so impartial, like not judgmental. And I think unintentional bias can happen so often in therapy, and you are one of the most non-biased people I know, who will just go, whatever's happening for that person, I will just take it all on. And I sometimes I wonder whether or not it's just your own, the way that your mind thinks and your empathic nature has allowed you. Maybe that's, I don't know, I'm just putting things out there. Maybe your ADHD has allowed for that way of thinking. Is that something you've ever sort of processed or thought about, or is that, you know, something that you think, because of my ADHD, this is helping me in these ways?
Yes, I think once I started, but even before the diagnosis, and once I started to have strong confirmations of myself with having ADHD, I was then able to, I guess, confirm or support or understand if certain things didn't work for someone. And so I think I have a really, really strong interest in others and really getting to know people and being able to do what I can to support them. Obviously, it's my job, but I like to do it in real life as well. I mean, work is real life, but personal life as well.
All areas.
Yeah, exactly. But I know that there are times where I can think, okay, like sometimes this works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I need to be able to do this before I'm able to do this. And so like even school settings, like I'm starting to learn, okay, like I think in a way I held on to so much and internalized so much when I was younger because I wasn't really sure what was happening, and I just had these really, really strong expectations of myself. And I think also in a way so did like my family, because I guess generally my family was run on quite a tight ship, but also when you don't have the awareness or a diagnosis there or a label or even just querying it, the expectations can be quite high. And so I've reflected a lot about when I was younger and how I internalized things or expected these things of myself to be able to do stuff and conform in that way. Now as an adult with this understanding of myself, it is really liberating to just be able to, you know, still complete what I need to complete, but do it in the way that I need to. And so I see in myself how much that can change and what I need changes. And so I just want to be able to give whatever I can to my families so that these kids aren't internalizing anything as well, or having even the parents having unrealistic expectations on their kids, or the kids having it on themselves, and just learning that like it's okay that sometimes things work and sometimes things don't, but it's okay to just have to figure it out each time as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like what I would have loved as a kid and what I'm understanding now is helping me to then be able to support my families in that way and empower them in that way.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
That's so beautiful to hear of you speak about how liberating and empowering that process has been. And I guess for those families that perhaps are looking to go through a similar process of undertaking a diagnosis, or a young person who, like you, has had questions about how their brain is wired, what would you like to share with them ahead of a process like this about that, what that can support afterwards?
That's a good question. I think it's always okay to be curious, and it's so beautiful to see that we are living in a world where, you know, diverse brains and different abilities and different diagnoses are more commonly understood and accepted. And so I wouldn't want anyone to feel a sense of like, oh no, if they're thinking about this for themselves, because it is simply, for me, like, it's just that my brain is a little bit different. I actually explained this to someone yesterday, a teenager I've recently started working with that's really struggling with school. And I was trying to explain to them that, like, if school looks like, it is shaped like a circle, and a lot of people at school have a brain that's shaped like a circle, that fits really well. But there are times when there are people that have a brain that's shaped like a triangle. And if they're entering a school where it's shaped like a circle, it's not going to fit, and that's really hard for them. And it doesn't mean that the triangle is wrong. It just means that at the moment that system that's put in place isn't matching, the shapes aren't matching. And so, you know, I kind of went to explain if there are ways that we can make that circle kind of look a little bit more like a triangle, if I can speak with school, if we can think of strategies. It helps them to be able to engage in school, but it was me trying to explain that, like, you aren't wrong, and it's not that you're not right, it's just that you're different. I want people's curiosity not to come with shame and not to come with fear, and it might, and that's okay, but like, don't beat yourself up if that is the case. Your emotions are your emotions, but we're getting to a place where the shame and the fear isn't coming external either. So you don't have to feel that way because externally that's what it's making you feel.
And I really hope that, having conversations like this can help alleviate some of those feelings, because it is about that neuroaffirming, neuroembracing that we're all different and wired differently, and how can we best access the things that we need to understand that and do the things that we need. And actually even Siena, thinking about, you know, that triangle trying to fit into a circle, and it sounds like as part of your journey, without that understanding, you've intrinsically tried to access things that supported that fit. But like you said, having this understanding now as an adult about what your brain looks like completely shifts what things you can put in place.
Yeah.
I know you've spoken a lot today about what works, what doesn't work. Can you share with us, as a neurodivergent adult working full-time, what are some strategies that you put in place to manage your needs as part of your neurodevelopmental profile?
Yeah. I do often say that I think for a while I have just, like, without realising, OT'd myself. But I do want to say that, like, I have definitely not got everything perfect, and I do really struggle still with lots of things. But it's nice now that there is, like, a confirmed and, like, concrete reason as to why I struggle with some things. And so I need a lot of movement, and I think my life has really set up to support my sensory needs in a way. And so my ability to bike ride to and from work and getting that movement before I need to do a lot of focusing helps. The fact that my workplace is very dynamic, a lot of movement, there's not as much sitting down typing and having to like focus on a screen for a while. I think for me, like sensory wise as well, like I think I would really struggle where I have to wear shoes, I have to wear like fitted formal clothing, like the fact that I can wear t-shirt and shorts and run around with barefoot or socks on and I don't have to do my hair. Actually, like, you know, doing hair for some people isn't a lot, but that I can just have it loose and down actually makes such a difference for me. Outside of work as well, I play a lot of sport, maybe sometimes too much sport. But again, it does, that movement helps release so much energy that I have going on here. Honestly, like I'll leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning if I'm swimming before work and then bike riding. And then I'll get home at 9 p.m. and then that'll be enough for me to actually be able to fall asleep. And if I'm not doing that much, then my mind is really, really is buzzing a lot. And so the amount of like movement and freedom that movement and busyness that I get in my day, that it is very like go, 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 does help me and makes me feel quite fulfilled as well. Yeah. It meets my needs, but then it also gives me a sense of enjoyment. But I am continuing to struggle with, okay, I can see this is how much I want or how much I need, but how much can my body actually give? Yeah. And there have been many times where I do burn out. I will have injuries when I'm sick. I'm really sick, and even like during the day, I won't really realise that I'm hungry until I'm feeling really faint, or I won't realise that I'm tired until I'm falling asleep on a table upstairs during a meeting at 5 p.m. And so I have got really good things in place. And I also have like lovely people that understand and work with me in that way, but I'm still trying to build up the skills to not burn out, and also more skills to do with like executive functioning again. Being able to just like do adult things without becoming really overstimulated or really overwhelmed. And especially things that do take multiple months to plan and with that have multiple steps as well. I guess like when I'm looking at sensory aspects and things that happen at work specifically that I do struggle with and also did help confirm more of the queries I had for myself was a lot to do with like, I guess like the busyness in an environment and like whether it's like, I guess specifically like the noise. I think what I do struggle with at work and which I'm trying to learn to manage is like when, especially at Plus where it is a shared space or our office is a shared space as well, like I find it really hard to filter in and out that information, and I see it with my kids here as well where I'll be saying something and even I can't hear myself, and so I see my client and they have not processed it. It's kind of helped me understand, okay, like they're not getting it, I'm not getting it. Yeah. And also then helps me to build the understanding and the skills of like, okay, we're both not getting this. What can we do instead? Or maybe I just don't need to talk at the moment and we just need to move. And when we're ready, we can talk. Or should I write it down? Or should I draw it? And I think how I can like manage my own ability to modulate, or when I am feeling dysregulated, okay, what would help me teach them might actually be what will help them understand too.
And like I can hear, Siena, that like with the work that you've chosen, that path you've chosen to go down, it tailors to a lot of the strengths, the things that you do well, meeting your needs across your day. It sounds like perhaps without realising you've really strategically structured that in your life in a way that works really well for you. And I know Mike was going to ask in a second around how you prevent some of that burnout that you describe, but what are some things that work for you like in the moment when you are feeling overwhelmed? I can, in chatting with your clients, it seems like that's perhaps at a point where you're drawing awareness to your sensory needs and can do things a little bit differently. But have you managed it where it's become really big and you've needed to put something, I guess, a little bit more reactive in place to help what you need in the moment?
Lots of different things. Sometimes, like the other day, I was really, really struggling with the amount of noise, and actually Eli called me, and I felt like I could not, I was either going to shut down and not take anything in, or it was all just going to come out in tears or something. And again, being able to figure out what helps me in a place like this is great, because I don't have to pretend. Everyone kind of gets it. Everyone sees it all day. So I feel comfortable to explore what I need and have those kind of reactive support strategies. And so, yeah, the other day I was on the phone and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just lay underneath the table in the desk in the corner, and I was sitting in the dark, like under the table, just talking on the phone. So sometimes for me is like that quick shift away from a busy sensory environment where there's lots of noise and lots of light, and maybe lots of people as well. Other things that I do at work sometimes, usually after work, is I'll just do huge jumps on the trampoline, and that helps as well. I also sometimes have to take a moment to think, okay, when was the last time I had something to eat, or when was the last time I had water? Yep. I also do feel really comfortable to seek out the people at work. So whether that is getting like a really big cuddle, or just like falling into like the lap of my friend that's sitting at the desk doing their work and just getting big squeezes. I feel really grateful that I can do that. Yeah, I feel like the movement, the deep pressure, checking my interoception, which is really hard to do sometimes, and sometimes then decreasing the amount of like sensory information and input that is around me helps a lot in the moment. Yeah.
I might just really quickly finish off with more of a comment, but you can certainly chime in. But when you are talking about your experience at work and life and the importance of understanding your own, whether it's your sensory needs or a diagnosis, I hear a lot of the importance of physical and mental health together, but I think particularly in the mental health sphere, it's more important now to think of it as health generally. And so you're a really good advocate of health is not just one or the other. It's not just physical or mental health. They can't be, one can't be taken away and the other one, it's health generally. So you're just really quickly, your own experience of how important your physical health is to your mental health, and how health is a general principle, how important that is for you, and then how you then try and relay that to your families as a clinician.
Okay. I feel like it's so simply also scientific, of like the happy hormones we release through doing physical exercise just goes to show how much they are related. But it's not just like exercise and happiness. Like obviously there is like sleeping and eating and like social connection and whatever it is. But I work really hard to get the 1%ers in my life right. And I can see that if I haven't been eating properly or sleep has been impacting me, how much emotionally that does affect me too. And I don't know, like humans need to move, humans need to eat, humans need to sleep. It's simply in our like genetic makeup. And so for us to have that real internal like satisfaction, and then that overall, that I guess like outward joy or comfort, we need to have those things in place. I don't think as an adult you just have, you can't play anymore. Like I think as an adult we still need to do a lot of movement, and we still need to like get outside and have nature and be playful and experience joy, because I don't think that maturity equals we don't need that anymore. I don't think aging equals less play. And I think maybe sometimes social factors or like cultural things of what adults should do and how they hang out, or how they like what adult leisure time looks like, has impacted our own perception of what we need. But I do think that like play and movement, and also your eating and your sleeping and things like that are things that we will always need. We release the hormones, the good hormones, when we're doing those things. There is evidence.
Beautiful. Well, yes, you're a very playful OT and a playful person. I hear it in all the things you do in your day. There's a lot of research on play as you go through the lifespan, so you should probably start doing some of your own.
Playing?
Research.
Oh, research.
But thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your experience. And
Thank you.
I really enjoyed. I know we talk a bit. You're here a bit, and we often have D&Ms at times and hear a lot of things that are going on. So very privileged to be able to interview you and have the time for others to hear your story as well. And as a clinician, how much you're able to bring in your own experiences into your day-to-day life. And as you said, how being an OT has helped you OT yourself too.
And I know, Siena, I'm really excited to hear. I know that you've spoken about how you're hoping to use this as an opportunity to connect even further with your families and help guide them perhaps on those next steps. And I'm really excited to hear how that looks with some of the families that you work with.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think that was like the biggest reason. Well, it is the biggest reason why I did want to do this, and I have so much like passion and excitement to be able to share this experience with my families. And I think sometimes it's hard to like put how I'm feeling and what I want to share in words and to be able to articulate it well. And I kind of hope I did today. I think I've just like spoken and without even thinking about what I've said. But I'm always so here and open to have the conversation with my families, parents, clients, whoever. Yeah. I want to keep the conversation going because I do think it's liberating that we can talk about this stuff with positivity instead of shame or fear.
Yeah, and I think you don't necessarily need to have a think about it before you speak it because it's your truth, it's your journey, and I think you speak really beautifully and with such authenticity. And so I think it's been, wonderful to chat with you today. And it always brightens my day to see you too. So this has been awesome.
Yeah, love seeing you guys.
Thank you again, Siena, for coming on. And if anybody has any questions for Siena, or if they want to shoot anything through, there's the Instagram podcast.otfc group or email podcast@otfcgroup.au. Feel free to shoot through your feedback and comments. And quick shout out to Fletch before we finish. We always do a little shout out to Mr. Fletch at the end of our episode, and I think Siena's the best person to do that. You want to give a little shout out to our friend Fletch?
Fletcherino, shout out to you. Soon we'll hang out and do some Zoomies, but big love to you and big hugsies for Fletchy.
Thanks, Siena. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.